after the plane ride I imagine you had home with all those injured boys last week, to then turn around and have the amount of them available that you've ended up having, is that a great surprise and joy as a coach, I'd imagine?
It's helpful. It's certainly helpful, but we did have a fair bit on our plate by the end of the game last week, and as it's turned out now, most of them we thought at the time would be okay anyhow. So that was, but they played through a game in some discomfort. But clearly we've still got two big players out, and they make a big difference to our side when you lose Robbie Gray and Aliir. But it somewhat helps a little, but you haven't lost any more.
So you can run through them quickly. Robbie, probably just a week?
Yeah, we'd think so. And Aliir obviously has had surgery, and he's probably somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks.
And then Trent to turn around after what you saw and the way that we've all seen those injuries in the past to play a week after. What do you think?
Yeah, well, it's a great result for us. A great effort by Trent to get up. I mean, I have seen them over the journey where you look at them and you think the absolute worst when they happen, and then some people, luckily enough, don't do too much damage, and it's more around how much bone bruising they get out of those instances. And Trent was pretty lucky that he didn't get too much. So it's a great result to have him available.
Ken, beyond necessity, what has made Sam Skinner get his spot on the side?
Oh, he's really earned it. He's certainly earned it. He was in the mix for last week. He's in the conversations last week as far as his form through the whole pre-season's been really solid. We were really keen to see him play very early on, and obviously we didn't get that chance. But his intercept marking and his ability to go fearlessly at the ball is at a really high level, and it's an exciting story. It's a great story, Sam. I mean, 3 ACLs and the journey to come back and come to South Australia and play football, and then go down to South Adelaide and perform and get recognised again, and then join us. And here it is, round 2, and he's back in the AFL competition.
Was Mead a little unlucky to fall out of the 22?
Yeah, he was. Oh, look, he'll be in the 23. He'll play our sub. So if that's the question, he'll be our mix. So we like to make sure that we keep him in the side as much as we often can. And sometimes it's a little bit of a juggle between what you need and what you don't need. And we weren't, as you all know, we weren't that sure until late in the week where that'd all land.
We often see Robbie hobbling around at training during the week, but he ends up playing. What was the difference this time around?
Oh no, there's a Rob's pretty much his own doctor in some ways. He knows exactly what he is and what he needs to be, and when Rob gives you some doubt, it's real. So Rob early in the week was a bit concerned about how he'd be for this week, albeit very optimistic about how he'll be for next week. So we know and we trust Robbie.
We also seen in the pre-season knew what he's capable of and his flexibility. How do you want to use him in this game?
Oh, again, the flexibility is really, really important for us, and we've seen that again last week. You never know when you might need someone, and Josh is another great story, another reflection on the recruiting and drafting of our footy club and the development. So we're really excited about what he'll bring. He can play inside, he can play outside, he can play both ends of the ground. He does give us great flexibility. So we look forward to him having his first game here at Adelaide Oval. I think it's really another significant moment for any young Port Adelaide player. If your first game's at home in front of the faithful, that's a pretty big day.
You couldn't fault spirit. What about method, particularly among your forwards? How have you dealt with that this week?
Oh no, there's definitely some challenges with getting the score on the board that we want, and our forward line clearly this week plays without Robbie, without Orazio, without Charlie, so there's a bit of experience missing there. So I think it's a great opportunity for people who are developing their own game and looking to improve and build as a group, and I think that's really real for us. And I think Todd and Mitch and even Jez, who are playing together, have only had a couple of games together. I'm sure they'll get better together.
Is there any doubts around Connor? Does he need to show something today?
No, we don't mess around. We pick the team as it is, and we like to be very clear, unless something goes wrong between now and game time, that the team we select is the team that we'll play with.
You said last week you were hopeful Charlie would play at some level this weekend. Is that still going to be the case?
No, he won't play this weekend. No. But he's trained all week, which is really positive for us.
Next weekend, a chance?
Well, on what I've seen this week, I'd suggest it's a big chance, but again, you've got to be sure by the time you get there. We said right from the start, we're not going to take the risks. He's a combative player. He needs to be right when he plays, otherwise it's just unfair on him and us.
How do you play a sense of responsibility on the players for a night that's a tribute to Russell Lee? How do you work then in a group, particularly if there's a lot of young men who haven't seen Russell as a player?
I think with the great respect that we would like to deliver to Russell and his family, it'll be easy. Our people know Russell and have lived with Russell too. I mean, even it's only our last couple of new players who actually didn't get any contact. Russell basically run our programs, our community programs, and all our young players had an introduction to Russell Ebert, and he's obviously the greatest player to play at Port Adelaide. And you know, the number 7 tomorrow night is there's some real meaning in that for us as a football club, and our players that won't be missed by them, I'm sure.
What are you expecting out of Hawthorn this week in terms of the way Mitchell's got them playing?
Yeah, they'll be certainly a challenging team. They're quite brave and aggressive with the ball. I think this, it's a sign of what Sam is. I think as a player, I think he certainly would encourage his players to play, and I hear his language around freedom and letting them play a little bit. So, but they're really well drilled already. I think you can watch their defence and their offence is not too far apart. There's no favouring towards one or the other. They're bringing in 2 good players to their side. They've got their captain and Bruce coming back into their team. They're a strong, hard, tough footy team. They're going to be a bit of a battle for us at every game we play. And this competition, you take them all and you go, okay, let's just try and do our absolute best and get a win. That's the most important thing. And the opposition always create a problem. I think the view from us is that we need to concentrate on what we do well, and even last week we need to concentrate on who we are, not necessarily who the oppo are.
What can you tell us about what Sturs had to go through this week with his collarbone? What type of injury is that?
Yeah, it's his collarbone, and so he's had to deal with some pain early in the week, and then get through and train. And he trained all of yesterday without any discomfort. So we're really optimistic. He's a tough young player, so we don't have any problems about without his contest. If he goes out there and takes the field, which he will tomorrow night, he'll play in the same manner as he's always played. So yeah, any player. It's a bit early to be talking about. They all carry some sort of injury in the season, but maybe that's just reality of AFL football now. It's pretty tough to play.
You know what number he'll wear?
Yeah, I do. He's going to wear number 50, which is an interesting choice, but I think there's a connection to his father in that as well. And Xavier's that type of person who represents his family. Obviously, he's done a great thing from a club point of view, but 50's got a little bit of a meaning in that, I think, for Xavier and his family. So that will be nice also.
Can we just say you want Port Adelaide to be who you want them to be? But how do you define that? What definition do you give of your Port Adelaide?
Oh, look. Port Adelaide, we all understand who we want to be and who we try to be because a question that who do we want them to be and what do we define them by is we all know what good football teams look like and play like, and we're no different. We want to be that football club who's a really consistent football team, and I think we've gone some way towards creating that as a football club, but we've got a little bit to still do.
Was last week a pretty good example of the sort of spirit you want from your team, regardless of what's on the scoreboard?
Yep. Yeah, it's a really good example of what I expect from our football team, and this game is tough and it's hard and it's brutal and you don't always get to win, but you've got to have a way about you that you can actually hold your head up and go, okay, well, we did what we should do as much as we could do, and we had an opportunity last week that we could have won that game and we didn't. So we do learn against the best teams in every competition. You've got to play right to the end, and Brisbane, to their credit, had enough in the last quarter to get over the top, but it was still a performance that you go, what, if we can play like that consistently, we'll be okay.
So that's one more. Without Charlie, you've had a look 1 week at how the forward line looks without him. Is that sort of fail-safe almost? If you get stuck, you get long down the line. Those forwards that you have now, the tall forwards, can they, or have they been instructed to impact the contest or try and impact the contest the way that someone
What are you saying, Max? I'm trying to figure out what you're trying to say there. Do you think we cope without Charlie or not? Is that what you're asking me?
No, I'm asking you, the tall forwards that you have at the moment, I know they're different to Charlie, but have you instructed them this week, because they fly at the ball a bit differently too? Have you instructed them this week to crash a pack, or do they have to do anything differently to the way that they would usually play?
I think I'll answer it with, they have to play in a role that we expect of our tall forwards. Whether they're not Charlie, you're right, you're 100% right, they're not Charlie Dixon in the way he goes about things, but we have a game style that we like to play, and we consistently play it well, and parts of the team need to fill the roles in that team. So those forwards are expected to do that as much as anyone is, whether they're not quite, as you say, the size of Charlie Dixon, but they certainly are encouraged to compete as much as they can.
Ken, topic of the week's the tribunal. Are you more confused, or have you got a handle on it after this week?
I'm just better off to stay out of it, I reckon, because I don't think anyone creates too much clarity, and we just let it play out and let the AFL take care of that.